This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. If you're looking for cards in the US, look no further as you can use the promo code MTGMudsta to get you 5% off anything on the site. Or if you're in Canada like me, you can use the same promo code at Multizone to get 10% off your orders of singles. If cards aren't what you're looking for, Original Magic Art has playmats, tokens, and sweet art that you can use that same promo code to help you get 5% off your order there. If you're looking to bling out your cards, using Alter Sleeves is a great way to do so, and you can click the affiliate link in my About section to help out the channel as you make an order. And if you just want to help out the channel, you can always consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month and join the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game is another Jersey Boys special, with Frank playing Tasigur the Golden Fang. He keeps Sword of Feast and Famine, Treasure Cruise, Cryptic Command, Bloodstained Mire, Verdant Catacombs, Mission Briefing, and an Overgrown Tomb. Harry is playing Moritte of the Frost, keeping Naban, Dean of Iteration, Cold Eye Selkie, Simic Growth Chamber, Chameleon Colossus, a Snow-Covered Forest, a Breeding Pool, and a Rite of Replication. Matt is playing Azusa, Lost But Seeking, and keeps a Yavimaya Hollow, 3 Forests, Fierce Empath, Green Sun Zenith, and Beast Within. Trevor is playing his Elesh Norn deck, keeping 2 Plains, Legion's Landing, Teferi's Protection, Finale of Glory, Cathar's Crusade, and Increasing Devotion. Trevor wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a Plains, and taps it for 1 white for Legion's Landing, which makes him a 1/1 lifelinking vampire token, and he passes to Matt. Matt draws and plays a Forest. Frank plays a Verdant Catacombs. Harry plays a tapped Breeding Pool and passes back to Trevor. Trevor plays a Plains and swings the lifelinking vampire at Harry for 1. He gains 1 as well and passes turn. Matt draws and plays a Forest. At the end of Matt's turn, Frank cracks the Verdant Catacombs, losing 1, and goes to find a Zagoth Triome. Frank draws and plays a Bloodstained Mire. Harry plays a Snow-Covered Forest and casts a Tangled Florahedron and passes. Trevor draws but misses his land drop and goes to combat. He swings the vampire token this time at Frank, dealing 1 and gaining 1. Matt draws and plays a Forest, casting his commander, Azusa, Lost But Seeking. He then plays 2 additional lands, which are another Forest and a Yavimaya Hollow, and ships his turn. At the end of turn, Frank cracks the Bloodstained Mire, losing 1 to find a tapped Sunken Hollow. Frank draws and plays a tapped Overgrown Tomb and pays 2 mana for Life from the Loam, getting back his 2 fetch lands and passing. Harry plays a Cold-Eyed Selkie, apologizing to Frank as the only player with islands. He then plays a Simic Growth Chamber, bouncing the Snow-Covered Forest back to his hand and passing. Trevor draws and swings the vampire token at Frank again, gaining him 1. He's missed another land drop at this point and moves to discard, pitching a Numeria Shepherd. Matt draws and plays a Horn of Greed. He then plays an Inkmoth Nexus and a Reliquary Tower, drawing a card from each of the lands coming in and passing to Frank. Frank follows Harry's earlier example of playing a Breeding Pool and having it come in tapped. He draws a card from the Horn Trigger and then casts a Sword of Feast and Famine. Harry draws and swings the Cold-Eyed Selkie at Frank, dealing 1. He draws a card from its trigger, and then plays a Snow-Covered Forest. He follows up by casting his commander, Moritte of the Frost, as a copy of the Cold-Eyed Selkie, but it comes in with 2 +1/+1 counters. Trevor draws and finally rips a land off the top, playing it and drawing a card from the Horn. He then casts a Soul Ring, and then casts a Spectral Possession to make 3 1/1 Spirit tokens. Moving to combat, he swings the vampire token at Frank again, dealing 1 and gaining 1. At the end of turn, Matt casts Crop Rotation, sacrificing a Forest to go and fight a Gaia's Cradle and move to his turn. Matt draws and plays a Fierce Empath. It enters and lets him go and tutor for an Avenger of Zendikar to put to hand. Frank plays a Verdant Catacomb for a turn and draws a card. He cracks it and loses 1 to go and find a tapped Watery Grave. He then casts his Sensei's Divining Top and passes to Harry. Harry draws and moves to combat straight away. He swings both the Cold-Eyed Selkie and his commander at Frank for 4. With both versions of the Selkie connecting, Harry gets to draw 4 cards. Harry then plays a Forest, drawing a card from the horn, and then casts an Absorb Identity on Matt's Azusa. The Azusa gets bounced, and Moritte becomes a copy of Azusa until end of turn, letting Harry play a Riptide Laboratory and a Balagad Sanctuary, drawing a card as each land enters. Harry then casts an Eternal Witness to return to hand Absorb Identity, and moves to his end step, discarding down to hand size, which has him pitching 4 cards. Trevor draws and plays a Plains to draw another card. He then moves to combat and swings the Vampire at Frank and 3 Spirits at Harry. This transforms Legion's Landing into a Danto the First Fort, and Trevor follows up once that's done in his second main phase with a Smothering Tithe. Matt draws and plays a Nissa Vastwood Seer, getting another forest from his deck. He plays a forest, drawing a card, and this transforms Nissa. Once she's done, he upticks her to thematically reveal a fitting Ashaya, Soul of the Wild, and puts it to hand. Matt then casts a Dryad of Elysian Grove, which lets him play an extra land, and we see a Crystal Vein come in, drawing him another card. Trevor at this point has made even more treasures from Matt's draws, and with nothing else, Matt passes. At the end of turn, Frank casts a Brainstorm, giving Trevor 3 more treasures, and puts 2 cards back, and then moves to his own turn. Frank draws and plays a Scalding Tarn, drawing another card. This has Trevor gaining 2 treasures, and Frank then cracks the Tarn, losing 1 to find an island, and then delves away some of his cards to help cast Tasigur. With nothing else, Frank passes. Harry untaps, and on his upkeep, overloads a Cyclonic Rift. Trevor responds to this with a Teferi's Protection, which Frank counters with a Memory Lapse. Harry then draws for turn and moves to combat. He swings Moriette and the Selkie at Matt, which Matt responds to by using Beast Within to blow up the Selkie. Matt then takes 3 from Harry's commander, and Harry draws 3 cards. Harry then plays a Snow-Covered Island in his post-combat main phase, and casts a Simic Signet, passing to Trevor. Trevor draws, and casts a Finale of Glory where X is 5, making 5 2/2 Night tokens, and passing. Matt draws, and in his main phase, sacrifices the Crystal Vein to help cast an Avenger of Zendikar, getting 8 plant tokens as it comes in. He then plays Ashaya, Soul of the World, and recasts Nissa, Vastwood Seer, going to find another forest as she comes in. He then plays it, and that transforms Nissa. Although technically she would have flipped herself thanks to Ashaya making her a forest. Matt's plants also get 2+1/+1 counters, and he then upticks Nissa, revealing Rishkar's expertise, which he puts to hand. With nothing else, he passes to Frank. Frank draws and plays a Flooded Grove, and then recasts his Sensei's Divining Top, and then a Sword of Feast and Famine. He casts his first new spell for the turn, keeping them both on top, but then decides to dredge with Life from the Loam and puts both into his graveyard. Frank then passes turn. Harry draws and goes to combat. He swings at Frank for 3 with his Island Walking Moritte, and draws 3 as it connects. Harry then casts an unkicked Right of Replication on the Avenger of Zendikar, making his own token copy of it. He then plays a Rimewood Falls, and gets to put a +1/+1 counter onto all of his plants, including Moritte, who has Changeling, which is pretty sweet, and he moves to discard. Trevor draws and moves to combat. He swings at Frank for 10, and passes to Matt. Matt draws and upticks Nissa, revealing an Ancient Green Warden off the top, which he casts, and since it's a forest, adds another counter to his plants. He then plays a Crystal Vein from his graveyard to get another Avenger trigger. He then taps the Cradle for a billion green, and casts a Green Sun Zenith where X is 3. This gets him a dose in the Falling Leaf, and he then uses the remaining mana to cast a massive Finale of Devastation, where X is over 10, and goes to find a Crater of Behemoth, not to mention pump the board, and the table knows when they're done for, and scoop it up. So right off the bat, let's address the elephant in the room, and I'm sure the #1 comment for this video, and yes, Trevor did forget to bounce his Soul Ring back to hand. Thankfully, it didn't change all that much since it meant he would have only had 4 knights as opposed to 5, plus he didn't even win. I do want to talk about the more interesting play, which was Frank's Memory Lapse on the Teferi's Protection. I get where he's coming from. I think he wanted to keep Trevor off of all that mana, but seeing as everyone at the table has played against Trevor's Elesh Norn deck, they know that it's a token-based deck, and honestly, Mono White doesn't have a ton of ways of enabling mass haste to those creatures, so it wasn't as though Trevor was going to be able to do an Alpha Strike, although I'd love to know whether you would have counted Teferi's Protection or not. I think Harry's Moritte deck is pretty sweet, and the fact that it comes in as a bigger version of whatever creature he copies is even sweeter. Not to mention that Harry often runs a little bit off-the-wall cards, so a card like the Adaptation was pretty fun to see in action. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.